Hey, welcome to Ask Ping. Let's get started with our questions. First one comes from M. Plumber. Says, what's up, David? Loving the Ask Ping videos and the Whiskey Throttle show. Keep up the awesome work. I was wondering if you could help me with some advice. My son is 9 and in his second full year of riding. So he's still a beginner, but he has zero interest in riding a dirt bike. Do you have any advice on how to get him more engaged? He only rides because I make him go ride with me. And when he does, he rides around the track like a grandma riding her moped to church. He doesn't even try to get better. Other kids his age just blow by him and he doesn't even care. It's super frustrating because he seems very athletic and I think he'd be pretty good at it if he actually tried. In the Whiskey Throttle podcast with Denny Stevenson, he said he got rid of his kid's bike and his kid didn't even notice it was gone. I'm afraid my son will be the same way. I remember you saying you weren't real excited about racing when you first started riding, but you learned to love it. What can I do to help my son find that love? He's not very interested in learning any sport, but I would be so happy if he enjoyed riding a dirt bike, and I think he could be happy too if he gave it a real chance. Thanks, David. You're a true ambassador of the sport. M. Plumber. Well, listen, I think the big thing here, because I didn't like racing when I first started. The noise scared me. It was just intimidating, and I didn't love it. But I love to ride, and I had a Weisinger. We would go up in the mountains and just trail ride around. I had a field in front of my house and I would do a million laps around the simplest little trail that I had. And, you know, I think that you got to get him to fall in love with riding a motorcycle first and maybe not so much racing. And I find the same thing with my girls. Not that I'm interested in having them race, but if I take them to a track, they could take it or leave it. But if I say, hey, we're going to go to this place, there's a whole bunch of trails, we can go exploring, they love that. Like they can't get enough of that. We just follow a little single track until it ends and get stuck in the bushes and have to turn around. So you gotta find something that's fun for them. I know you love the track, but for him, maybe that's just not the thing. Maybe he's going to be a trail rider, you know? So get him to love the motorcycle first and then introduce him back to racing and see if that changes his mind. And you know, some kids it takes them a little longer. Some kids kind of wait till they hit puberty and then they'll start liking it. So I wouldn't give up, but you know, definitely don't yell at him or push him too hard into it. Let him just keep exposing him to it in a fun way, in whatever way he wants to, and you know, let it happen naturally. I don't know if that's good advice or not. That's kind of what worked for me. And it seems like the guys I've talked to have, you know, it's kind of been the same for them. So anyway, good luck. Appreciate the question. Second one says, hey Ping, thanks for answering my questions on Ask Ping number 5. I have a couple more for you, mate. Number 1, who was more frustrating to race back when 125s were the staple light spike, Stu or K-Dub? And number 2, you've said when you were on PC, you were able to race a 250, either on the opposite coast in Soupy or the outdoors. I can't remember. What was a PC prepped KX250 like to ride? I never heard anyone talk about the PC 250 two-stroke before. Thanks for everything, Ping. Keep up the good work, mate. Cheers, Matt from Oz. So question number 1, you know, I had a few frustrating people. When I first started, it was Huffman, but I wasn't even close. And then K-Dub was the next guy I kind of had to go up against, and he was just so smooth. He could make the most technical, difficult section look like nothing. And in fact, we just had David Villeman on the show, which will come out here in a couple weeks. Incredible show, by the way. And we were talking about Seattle 96. There was a triple that Kevin was the only one he could jump it. And David was like, oh yeah, I tried and about broke my wrists and ankles. And I said, I didn't even try it. I knew I wouldn't make it. He just had a way of carrying speed, and I don't know. He was amazing, but he made everything look really easy. Then I had Carmichael in 97. Needless to say, that guy was he would hang it out and do things to win that nobody else was willing to do. I think that was really the bottom line with him. And then I had Stewart, who again just did things that you didn't think were possible. And you know, I don't think head to head I beat Stewart too often. I did beat him in a race, but he tipped over in the first turn. And I would say probably the most frustrating for me would have been K-Dub, just because he was so smooth and made everything look so dang easy. And then the second one about the 250. So I did 95, I think again in 97, I rode some 250 supercrosses. And I would take a bike and go do some international supercross races, Geneva, and we did a series in Mexico, and I did a bunch of them. But it was a different time back then. We didn't, now they'll send a motor and the suspension and triple clamps and, everything. Back then it was like handlebars, pipe and silencer, and a sprocket. That's what you took, and you rode a stock bike. And so when we went and did these races, it looked like our race bike, but it didn't have titanium. It was just a ported cylinder and head that Mitch did, pipe and silencer. And that was about it. We'd go out with bones, use the stock suspension, just come up with a decent setting and go. And so I think there was a pretty big gap, but it's no different than today. There was a big gap between a factory bike and what we showed up on, which at the time was a good privateer bike. I mean, that KX250 that I raced, you could go to Pro Circuit and buy all those parts, exact same bike. So it wasn't anything super special, to be honest. And that was just sort of the norm back then. If you didn't have a factory ride, you rode what they built you. And it was usually just kind of a production bike modified to what you like. So a little bit different for sure. Nowadays, like I said, they're sending all kinds of parts with the guys, and it's just definitely a different time. But I did do, I think 3 or 4 Supercrosses that year: Phoenix, Seattle. I did Indy, made the main at Indy, Daytona. I was actually running inside the top 10 at Daytona on a 250 in 95 until I threw a chain. So I had some decent rides on it, but just, it's tough when you're not doing it full time. It was for me. I never got super comfortable with that bike or a setup with it. So anyway, and I did have some reference too, because I rode Rhino's factory Cowie, because his deal was he rode for Mitch, but he also had some factory stuff. And when he was making that transition to the big bike, I rode his bike at the test track one day, and it was nothing like my motorcycle, I can tell you that. So anyway, hope that answers your question. I appreciate it. As always, send questions down here in the comments. You can send them to admin@whiskeythrottlemedia.com, or just, hit us up on Instagram. If you got questions, we'll answer them here. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week.